one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Okay. Before we go into the roll call, to me, and most of you have known me for a long time, and those that don't know me, I think it's the most appropriate thing. If you don't want to be a part of this, just go to mute. There's no way that I could be on this board as many years that I have been on this board, has worked with as many youth that I have worked with in my community and in my church, and not recognize what has happened.
I think you just muted again.
We lost you, Gladys.
We lost you.
It may be her connection.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think she muted. Let me see here. No, she's not on mute. She has an open mic.
Band issue?
And I don't want to have to go through that with my grandchildren like I did with my son.
Gladys, you may have to repeat that.
Yeah.
We missed you from the, other than you worked in the community and recognized.
Okay, I just wanted, it would not be me if to start this meeting without having a moment of silence for George Floyd and his family. I don't want to have to talk to my grandchildren the way I talk to my son about what do you do when the policeman stop you? And he's 37, so that was 37 years ago. So I just want to take, if you don't want to do it, you can mute, do whatever you want to do. We're not going to take 8 minutes and 46 seconds like the policeman held his neck down, had his knee on his neck. We're just going to take a few moments and just bow our heads for a few minutes, or however you want to look at me, it's up to you. We just want to take a few moments and hope that somehow our world will change when we talk about racism and the color of people's skin. Thank you. Thank you all so very much. Hey, can you do roll call?
Of course. Joe Britton.
Present.
Rachel Chalesky.
here.
Kate Canetta here. Gladys Cooper.
Yeah.
Lauren Daly.
Here.
Joe DaSilva. He's here. Let me see what it is.
Was here.
He was here.
I don't see him on the list.
I don't see him.
I don't either.
He may have had a technical, he's probably trying to work his way back in.
Yes.
Here
All
he
right.
comes.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm back. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. Catherine Hodgson.
Here.
Rich Janelli.
Here.
Kathy Molinaro.
Here.
Al Russo.
Yeah.
He's here. And Amy Spallino.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everyone's present.
Okay, next on the agenda is recognition. Dr. Sarah, you're going to do the recognitions?
Yes. Each year that when we go through our accountability work, which is based on student achievement levels, closing the achievement gap or exceeding performance levels, we've been very fortunate with our faculty and our principals for their leadership. We've had 2 or 3 a year. The past 3-4 years, we've had 6 or 7 schools of distinction. It's done on the backs of a lot of hard work and thoughtfulness from the principals and with the teachers' work and support from parents. I'm just exceedingly impressed with the results. I can't tell you enough going around the state when we do get inquiries. How are you guys doing? Well, you know, you can't replace hard work and working smart. And these principals and their faculty epitomize that. And I'm just so proud to be a part of their team. I'd like to, and we have many from central office. that support them as well. So I'd like to go through the list if it's okay. We'll start with Haystown with Stephanie Furman. Stephanie, are you here?
I am here. Hello,
Words to
everybody.
say? Anything?
Hello.
Hi. I'm just so proud of Haystown. This is our third time being recognized as a school of distinction. We work really hard. We dig into the data. We follow all the various curricula, and it's exciting when it pays off. So we're really, really proud. Thank you.
You're welcome. Congratulations. And by the way, the board has purchased a flag for him. Did you get yours delivered yet?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Oh, great. So you'll have 3 of them then. And over at Mill Ridge Primary, who has done exceedingly well, exceptionally, not only in terms of school distinction, but they're in the upper echelon with achievement. And Dr. Mary Cronin. Is Dr. Cronin here? Is there anybody from Mill Ridge here tonight? We'll pass on our congratulations. That's their 3rd or 4th time as well. South Street School, Carmen Vargas. Carmen?
Good evening, everyone. I am very proud of the staff and very proud of our accomplishment in South Street. And I thank everyone, especially Dr. Sal and the administrative council, the teachers, everybody, because this is definitely a team effort. And I'm very honored and privileged to be representing South Street with this wonderful, prestigious award and recognition. Thank you.
Congratulations to you. And Great Plains, Keisha Smith.
Well, Great Plain and I could not have done it without many blessings and support of our community, our parents, as well as central office. So we're glad for the past 3 years that we were able to not only just have performance this year in growth, but also to have outstanding performance. So thank you.
A lot of hard work. Did you get your flag?
I got someone else's, but I'm sure we'll have.
I'm sorry. Jeez. We'll get there. I'm sorry. Oh, my Lord.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very nice.
Okay. Is that telling you something to leave? No, it's okay. We've got Ellsworth Avenue School, Marnie Durkin. Marnie?
Hi, everyone. How are you? Good to see everyone. Thank you for your time, and thank you for this recognition. Just as my colleague said, it's certainly an honor, but it's also an honor that goes to the testament of the hard work and dedication of the staff, the students, and the families of Ellsworth Avenue School. So thank you.
And we have Stadley Rough School, Lenny Serlick.
Good evening, everyone. I just really want to thank the entire district for all the support that you have given us throughout the past few years. I just want to also mention all the coaches, from the language arts coaches and the math coaches. Without them, our staff couldn't do it as well. And the support that they give our teachers is a testament to all the hard work that we've all been doing these past few years to move our students forward, not only educationally, but academically and also in the social way. And I just want to thank everybody for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just got a message from, Western Connecticut International Studies with Chris Rush, the Magnet School. He can't get into the meeting. Chris, did you get in? He's trying to get in. He's having some trouble getting in.
Dr. Sal, I know Dr. Cronin was having a hard time getting on too.
Oh, geez. Okay, well, if they get in, well, if you don't mind, we'll recognize them. Gladys.
Right.
Okay, so maybe you could text them, Lenny, and tell them if they can.
I'm going to call him right now.
Great, maybe we can get him in.
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay, that makes 7. Let's see if we can get him in.
At the voicemail.
Okay, when they get in, we'll cut across and start the agenda. Is Sandy here?
I am here.
Okay, do we have any comments, Sandy, before we go to public participation?
Yes, we have one.
Okay.
It is Diana Chapois. She is a parent of 2 children in the Danbury public school system. She stated, I have a few suggestions I would like to present per an email sent to us by our school. I write this as a stay-at-home mom, so I understand working parents may or may not be able to accommodate my suggestions. Because the Danbury School District is so large, I suggest a survey on people with a list of school options of their students' future education platform. My suggestions is distance learning with the option the child goes into school about 1 to 2 times a week to check in person with smaller groups in their class, but do the majority of their work virtually. What I envision is almost like a homeschool co-op where the students would follow Danbury Public Schools curriculum. I understand that this will not work for all students. Those students that have a stay-at-home parent or grandparent or babysitter and excel in distance learning, it could lower the numbers of people in our school buildings at one given time instead of having to triple the number of teachers or other resources to make classes smaller. I also have a suggestion for the DPS school drop-off and pickup system. Those who are interested in dropping off, picking up their children from school instead of taking the bus would reduce the number of students on buses. This may take some restructuring of the drop-off pickup bus times, but would reduce interaction. For our particular school, you have to park and physically walk into the school, which is even harder when you have other younger children. However, if there was a pickup drop-off line, the students would be directed right to their car. This also eliminates people in the buildings. And that is the only public participation for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Kate, you want to read the public participating? I got a little bit ahead of myself, but that's okay.
Sorry, Kate.
No problem. We all work together. Go ahead, Kate.
All right. Due to the unique nature of the COVID-19 crisis and the limitations of technology, members of the public who are Danbury residents are invited to send brief comments and questions via email in advance to dps_public_boe@danbury.k12.ct.us.
Thank you, Kate. You want to do the, go down to the consent calendar?
Sure. Make a motion that the Board of Education approves the items on the consent calendar, Exhibit 20-63 through Exhibit 20-65 as recommended.
Motion made by Kate. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Rachel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Could I do the roll call, Kate?
Yes. Joe Britton,
Aye.
Rachel Chalesky,
Aye.
Kate Canetta, aye. Gladys Cooper,
Aye.
Lauren Daly. You're on mute, Lauren. Nope, she might be frozen.
Aye.
Thank you. Joe DaSilva,
Aye.
Catherine Hodgson,
Aye.
Rich Janelli,
Aye.
Kathy Molinaro,
Aye.
Al Russo,
Aye.
Amy Spallina.
Aye.
Passes
We
unanimous.
have a confirmation of 11 ayes. Oh, the motion is so passed. Employee representative. Do we have an employee representative, Dr. Sam?
I'm not sure. Is anyone here? We have, I don't know if Christie's here or if Aaron's here. Guess not.
Okay. And our student representatives here?
Do I have any students present tonight? No, we do not.
No, okay. Okay. So now there's a presentation, Dr. Sam. We're gonna move on down.
No, we're going to, let me just double check. No, we have no presentations. We have some
Okay.
discussions where we're going to do a quasi presentation. So we're at action items.
Action item A, could you do action item A, Kate?
Sure. I'll make a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2020-2021 Board of Education meeting dates in accordance with Exhibit 20-66.
Motion made by Kate.
Second.
Could I hear a second? Seconded by
Second.
Joe. Any questions, discussion concerning our next meeting, meeting date for 2021? Seeing none? Roll call.
Joe Britton,
Aye.
Rachel Chalesky,
Aye.
Kate Canetta, aye. Gladys Cooper,
Aye.
Lauren Daly,
Aye.
Joe DaSilva,
Aye.
Catherine Hodgson,
Aye.
Rich Janelli,
Aye.
Kathy Molinaro,
Aye.
Al Russo,
Aye.
Amy Spallina.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
We have 11 ayes, and the motion so carried.
Um,
Action. Yes.
Madam Chairman, you're going to,
Action, yeah.
I would like a comment regarding action item B.
Okay,
If
go
you
ahead,
would-
Dr.
If
Sam.
the board would just entertain my request tonight, this budget has been iterative and development has been very different and unusual. And as of last Friday, we had intended simply to have a discussion tonight. Things changed radically Friday evening, which allowed us to put it on the agenda. I think in getting the information out late and as being such a complicated budget, I would request it be removed and that the board consider having a workshop and then at the next board meeting, giving people time to think about it because it is comprehensive, then take a vote on it. I think there might be other questions that board members may have. That may be the best way to do it. I respectfully ask for it to be removed from this evening's agenda.
Is everybody comfortable with that? We remove it from the agenda tonight? Okay,
All right,
Yes.
thank you very much.
thank you, Dr. Sam. Okay. Action item C. Kathy, would you make a motion, please?
Did you say Catherine?
Kathy.
Oh.
I saw her.
Gladys, you want about the superintendent's evaluation motion?
Yes.
That the Board of Education approve the 2019-2020 superintendent's evaluation as recommended by the Superintendent Evaluation Committee.
The motion made by Kathy. Could I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Amy seconded. Any discussion about the motion at this time?
No.
Seeing I, Amy, Kate, roll call.
Joe Britton,
Aye.
Rachel Chalesky,
Aye.
Kate Canetta, aye. Gladys Cooper,
Aye.
Lauren Daly,
Aye.
Joe DaSilva,
Aye.
Catherine Hodgson,
Aye.
Rich Janelli,
Aye.
Kathy Molinaro,
Aye.
Al Russo,
Aye.
Amy Spallina.
Aye.
Passes
We have
unanimously.
11 ayes. The motion is so carried. Thank you
Thank you.
all so very much. Superintendent's report.
Okay, let's start with the registration enrollment. You know what happened to us last year, so we're monitoring it. But going on this computer system, we have a better sense of the number of registrants that are waiting. So I have, Kevin, do you have anything to update on that you'd like to make comments on? Go ahead.
Sure. So an update for the board and the community. I have great news. Danbury is still a popular place to live. And so we've been monitoring enrollment in a district from grades 1 through 12. Kindergarten, we don't have a handle on or did not have a handle on until we start to get enrollment. We have learned in the last couple of weeks that our enrollment is right on target with last year in kindergarten. And so around this time last year, we had over 600 kindergartners. We now have 720. And so we are right on pace with the same kindergarten numbers that we had last year. And my understanding is in previous years, we have gotten a rush from other countries into the district, typically in July and August, and then another wave in January. And so we should probably anticipate high kindergarten numbers as we have in years past.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Sal or Kevin, wouldn't
Yes,
you
sir.
think, yeah, this is Richard. Wouldn't you think that with the current virus situation and the restriction on travels, that the influx from other countries wouldn't be as great this year as it has as we had experienced last year?
So, Mr. Janelli, that's why this smile is on my face, because I thought it was going to slow down registrations to date. And my understanding is my I don't want to say concerned, because I'm excited that folks are continuing to come into the community, but if we get a wave in August and anticipating that travel restrictions are going to be lifted as we get closer and closer to the fall, I think we should anticipate another wave of some sort. Hopefully not as, as large of a wave as we had last summer. But it appears that our kindergarten numbers are going to stay steady for sure.
Well, thank you. That's surprising. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, I have a
Yeah,
question.
you're welcome.
Yes, Mr.
Kevin, just because I'm not sure, I want to make sure I have terminology right. Our kindergarten numbers are right where they were last year. Is that the June number last year or the September, oh my God, we got a lot of extra
I'm
people
sorry,
number
Joe. Yeah,
from last year?
for clarification, right on pace with June from last year.
Okay, so we're on
Yes.
pace. We're not on the accelerated where we got to, but we're on pace where we
Yes.
were. Okay.
Right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for asking the clarifying question. I appreciate it. That's important for everybody to know.
The good news, as I said to the board, as they come in and the youngsters register, we have now a very solid collection process. So our big challenge, quite frankly, is to go through and schedule our testing of the youngsters, with all the restrictions that we have. But that is going to go much smoother. So we'll have a better handle on things. So we'll keep.
Where's the testing being done now? Where will it be done?
We were just go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was just going to say, so Mr. Janelli, as you know, in years past, we've had testing taking place at Osborne Street. We're exploring other options right now. A nearby school is one of the options that are on the table at Ellsworth. We still have some logistics to work through, but those are one of the options that we're considering. There's more space for families, even by appointment. There's more space for people to spread out. We just think that might be the safest option to go with.
Right.
Thank you.
Kevin, as long as you're talking summer school update.
Sure. So summer school update, we are moving toward, we're beginning to wrap up our summer numbers. And so information is coming in regarding the request for K-5. And so we have two people leading that effort, summer school leaders leading that effort and trying to finalize staffing for summer school, albeit in a distance learning environment. The same thing with 6-8. And then, of course, 9-12 will be finalized after grading has taken place at the high school. At the middle school, we are also finalizing. And so as we begin to look at report cards and finalize those recommendations, but we have a different team working on staffing and associating that staffing with the request for summer school as we revisit and look at report cards, et cetera. So staffing will be in place and finalized soon. Letters have gone out to families from K-5, and we're looking, trying to get back those acceptance letters. The same thing with the middle school, and then summer school for high school is kind of business as usual, except it will be in a distance learning presentation or experience. And we'll be starting July 6th. If the high school in years past has had an acceleration program, and they required an additional week. So they will be starting 1 week prior, but everyone else will be starting July 6th in an online platform.
Kelly, anything with special education you want to talk about?
Special ed summer school will be done virtually this year. We typically have about 330 students with special needs that attend the program. Registration for the program is still open and ongoing and will continue until we start. But we've had about 220 parents that have responded. And I'm glad to say that only about 10% have denied, not agreed to participate in the online learning platform this summer. So we expect the participation to be pretty solid throughout the summer. We're working on a little bit of a modified schedule because it will be done virtually, and how to best support all of our students, particularly our neediest students in that environment. So we'll be doing a lot of small group, some one-on-one related services, and we will be scheduling blocks of time individualized to each student. Families will be communicated exactly what that schedule looks like. It'll remain consistent throughout the 20 days that ESY runs, and we'll also be supporting their learning with some online learning platforms and lessons supported as supplementary support for students in the Google Classroom. So that, and our dates for summer school start the same day as the regular ed summer school, July 6th, and it will run for 5 weeks. So it'll end on August 6th.
Was there a question, Amy? Did you have a question of Kevin? Was there someone who was asking a
Rachel.
question? Rachel, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, so K-5 is in person or is that also virtual?
That is,
Everything is
also,
virtual?
that is also virtual, yes.
Okay. And are we giving preference to our high needs students?
Kevin, do you have any?
For virtual? I'm sorry.
Or just summer school in general?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
so
Kara.
just at the K-5 level, we basically determine it by students who are just substantially deficient. And so we have invited this year over 1,800 students who qualify within that range. And we have about a little under 900 that have accepted the registration for the summer. And so we're now matching the groups of students to and hiring teachers accordingly. But it is virtual. We are focusing in on phonetics, comprehension, building fluency in the literacy side, but we're also doing mathematics this year. The kids are invited based on their literacy cut scores, and that's kind of per state of Connecticut guidelines. But we're also adding in an hour of mathematics as well, because kids tend to struggle in both. So it will be supplementing and doing a little bit more this year.
Thank you.
This is the most we've had in a while. We've widened the net a bit on who we're inviting. We've saved a little bit on transportation costs, so we're extending it out to a little bit to more students.
Great.
The other thing too, piggyback on what you're saying, Kara, is that, you know, the staffing is pretty different when we operate in this kind of an environment. So for example, we don't need to staff with nurses. We don't need as many tutors or special ed paras. We don't need the safety advocates. So we're finding that the budget is flexible for us, which is allowing us to open it to more students. And right now we're up around, I would say we're just under 100 teachers in the elementary level, and a significant chunk we're just finalizing at the secondary level. Again, all virtual onboarding and virtual scheduling. So it's so far, knock on wood, it seems to be going pretty smoothly.
Any other questions with summer school? Okay, great.
Dr. Sal, not necessarily with summer school, I'm assuming you finished, but I just noticed that Mary Cronin is logged on, and before you get to her, after you finish, I had a question for her. I think it was Kara. Somebody called me and asked me what other guidance counselors do, and I told them they do what they normally do. And to tune in today, and I would have Kara be more specific as to what they normally do. So with that,
we could talk about it in the reentry plan, some of the things that are going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
This way people understand, you know, what people are doing at this time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Dr. Cronin, Mary, are you here?
So Dr. Cronin is having trouble. She signed on, but her computer's frozen. So she sent me a text message and she would like me to read it. She said that she's sorry her computer froze. She could see and hear everyone. She wants the board to know how pleased and thankful for all the hard work from her students, parents, and teachers. They made her very proud, and it was a great retirement gift to go out with a school of distinction.
Congratulations, Mary.
Congratulations. We thank her for all her efforts.
Is Chris on? Try that. Is Chris here?
Chris is having trouble. I tried texting him and it's going right to voicemail. So my guess is that he must have some Wi-Fi issues. And I also tried calling him, so I'm not sure what's going on.
It looks like we're trying to re-invite him, but there's some kind of a problem.
Yeah, I did re-invite him.
Okay.
Try calling him one more time.
Let me just, before we move on, I did send out a message from the district on June 3rd regarding the George Floyd murder that happened in Minnesota. It's been a trying time, no doubt. I think Kelly has worked with her support staff if it's impacting youngsters or families that needed some support, and I thank her for that. Not being in school, it's very difficult to know, who needs that support. But certainly, if you view the marches and our youngsters. We happen to have a chapter of Black Lives Matters. The high school the last few years, we're a respectful group talking about the culture of how others are treated or mistreated, and how we as a community in Danbury can be better accepting of our differences. I'm proud of them, and they've been participating in the activities. I'm sure it'll be, I know with Kara, we talked about literature, inclusion into our curriculum and things that we need to be doing. I'm sure, again, it's the first step, but it was just a shout out to all of our community that were concerned, and we're here to support everyone during this tough time. So, and I thank you, Gladys, for the moment of silence. Yes.
Hey, this is Chris from AIS. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right, Chris.
No,
All
I
right.
just want to, real quick, I want to say thank you to everyone. I'm very grateful for the amazing staff, families, students, colleagues, leaders that we have in the district. We have very talented teachers, an awesome school climate, very high expectations, and most importantly, an incredible amount of trust, and that seems to lead to great student achievement. So thank you to everyone, and I'm sorry for interrupting the meeting.
Glad you got in, Chris. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So I did want to make that message that I did send it out. So I also, along those lines, I was working on something, and I'm pretty close to having a open town meeting that'll be on a Zoom meeting, town meeting on the 22nd of June at 6 o'clock. We're working out the details, but right now, and that'll be talking about, as that parent had indicated in the beginning, some preferences folks may have regarding reentry next fall. We have surveys that have gone out, and we'll be looking at those to focus some questions. So I have it scheduled right now on June 22nd from 6 to 7 on Zoom. So more information to come on that. Thank you. Yeah, move the discussion.
Yes.
Okay, so sit back, strap in, because we don't know where we're going on this thing. I say that in candid, but very concerned. I've said to the cabinet, stop planning, because we're just going absolutely crazy thinking the what if scenarios. There are some foundational things that we need to do about cleaning, about budgeting, purchasing, that we are ongoing with. Courtney can even speak to that. But the actual plans for next year, I will say they've been iterative. Is an understatement. They change daily. As of last Friday, we had some good indication that it would be a blended with X amount of days for elementary and distance learning for the secondary. And Carrie, you'll be glad to know that today there were some changes in that. That I'm hearing now, with because there's been a real recognition that about 169 towns, particularly the urbans, have some unique needs, not only for resource-wise but space-wise, and they need different accommodations. So we are just looking at two scenarios of what we understand may happen. And that is with the elementary having a greater presence in school, with the secondary on more of a distance learning format. Personnel is working on names. With social distancing, you can imagine each of our classroom, if we're perfectly symmetrically divided by 26, we could probably have, we've run some models, maybe 13 or 14 the most in a classroom, 920 square feet typically. So we'll need 2 classrooms for every group, which means you'll have 2 folks that are supervising. So we're working through that. The busing is a whole nother overlay. Courtney is working with the bus company. The expectation that there'll be a staff person on the buses with youngsters, the number of students that can ride on the bus, cleanliness, cleaning of the bus, picking up of students, where to pick them up, all of those things have to be worked out. All with, and this board has, my position has been much more conservative with what I think ought to happen with safety, but I think there is a real push to bring back folks on some limited basis. So tonight I thought I'd have Kevin talk about some of the things that he's working through with the area. Kara can chime in with things that she's doing curriculum-wise, and I've got Kelly and Courtney as well. So why don't we go with Kevin first?
Okay. So Sal, you covered mostly what I was going to say, but I will add, I think I shared with the board in our last meeting, we were waiting for additional feedback from the state, from the governor's office, to provide some further guidance on fall reentry plan in September. And so at that time, you might recall, we were hoping to receive something as soon as Friday. Since that Friday, we have learned that we're hoping now to get something from mid to end of June, something official from the state. As part of my seat with the Ed Advance Advisory Group to the commissioner, this is a regional group with Ed Advance. There have been two recommendations that have come out from these two different teams that I've been on with Ed Advance. One, that the first advisory group that I was meeting with, in which there's an advisory group from every RESC throughout the state of Connecticut, those meetings have been suspended until further information from the governor's office. So that's one. Secondly, in the most recent advisory group that I've joined, we went in with the purpose to develop a framework for a back-to-school model that would serve as a template for schools in this respective region. And so right now we have a template for a plan, and that plan includes kinds of non-negotiables in every single area, including how we're going to welcome back students, prioritizing students with IEPs and English language learner students, non-negotiables and how we're going to support the needs of students, the social emotional well-being of students and staff, non-negotiables for visitors to the schools, non-negotiables for physical space and setup in classrooms, non-negotiables, and this would be my last non-negotiable, non-negotiables for how we're going to distribute food to students during the school day. And then within all of those respective buckets, each school district will then identify the strategies that's appropriate for their school district. And so to that end, we've been meeting with subcommittees. So as you guys know, we've had a bigger committee of like 25, 30 people, covering, from a teacher or two, from administrators, to health department personnel from the fire department, chief of police, etc. But we've also had a number of follow-up subcommittee meetings to identify the appropriate mitigation strategies to make sure everyone's safe. And so we've had 3 or 4 meetings with the operations group. There's an operations group specifically for the bus. And so we've met with, folks from the personnel from the bus department, transportation department, to make sure we've landed on the appropriate strategies to keep staff safe, most importantly, keep kids safe. We're still waiting for further guidance from the state so we can talk about a plan for pickup and what that would look like, how many runs we would have to make, how many buses we would need, etc. We've also met with a contingent from our music department to talk about how we're going to appropriately clean our instruments and make sure that's done in a safe manner. And also waiting for further guidance from the state to learn if we can even play those instruments in the classrooms. Also met with buildings and grounds people and some operations people within the district, with buildings and grounds people from the city, to talk about what does this mean for recess, how are we going to handle when all of these common spaces are touched by children, and how are we going to mitigate the risk in those scenarios. So we met with the subcommittee there. And just give you an example, this thing has continued to grow antennas as we try to land on the strategies to keep everything safe. But as Sal mentioned earlier, we're continuing to talk about how we're going to sanitize, how we're going to sanitize, common use spaces, classrooms, etc. But we really need some definitive language from the state so that we can pull all of this together. So once we have that, and right now we're beginning to work on a model that's, as Sal mentioned earlier, where our secondary students are continue to work in the distance learning format, and our younger students will be in school, a number of days a week. And so we're beginning to look at what that would look like, what that would cost for staffing, what this means for transportation. Once we get those particulars, I think we'll be able to run with this. So we're looking forward to it. I was also had an opportunity to get, as part of my seat on the advisory team, get a short look at the feedback from students and what they have said during this online distance learning format. And then I learned during my first meeting that they were also going to invite in the experts in the curriculum instruction field. So Dr. Kissimero is going to speak to that and talk about what she learned when she attended the sessions.
So, yep. So similar to Kevin's regional planning meeting, there is a parallel group that meets to talk about the curriculum instruction implications and how to adjust in this environment and be responsive. And one of the probably the most important factors heading into the fall is going to be feedback that we received along the way from teachers, coaches, parents, principals, and then the students themselves. I'm not sure. I'm going to put a little link in here on the chat and see if that works. But I'm gonna share my screen for just a moment because I think that the board might want to spend some time, not today, but perusing a site that was sort of commissioned by the state to solicit student feedback from quite a wide background of students. And so if you can see this, let me know. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what this is, let me just hide my view here. Okay, so what this is, and again, I'll make sure that this is in the minutes and I also shared it in the chat, the link. Students across the state, over 18,000 students, were asked the question, if learning from home were to be part of school next year, what changes could be made to make it more engaging and effective for students? And so this is called a thought exchange. And so what happens is a thought exchange usually asks just one question, and participants can write down as many thoughts, can jot down as many thoughts as they have that they felt was important in answering the essential question. And then these same participants get to go back into the same survey and they get to rate other students' thoughts that resonated with them, that they thought was important, or that spoke to them. And so in the thought exchange, it ranks all of the top thoughts from all of the 18,000 participants and categorizes them into emerging themes. And this is what I thought was kind of interesting as the top themes. So the bar graphs across look pretty flat, but what these represent are of all of those responses, and 433,000 or so opportunities to review and rate those responses. These were some of the ones that kept surfacing the most and had the most ratings per se. So if we start over here, I'm just going to go through the first four because I think they're ones that are repeated in some of the other themes. But for example, students, when it came to the theme of video, a lot of students wanted to make sure that that teachers were using videos to explain the steps and the problems and directions that they were receiving. And there are boatloads of really direct student feedback in here. They want deeper explanations of work. They want more teacher interaction. I wish there was more video contact with my teacher, live lessons from the classroom teachers. So these are really powerful statements from students, and there's lots of them. And I'm in the process of reading through all of these, and I've already taken lots of notes. You click on another one, and again, folks can play with this at their leisure. But it talks about how students felt about the workload and whether something was busy work or whether it was important, and the types of assignments that worked best or didn't work best. Lots of students craving interaction from their teachers, more interaction, the more the better. So I will make sure that these are that this link is definitely in the minutes, but it's definitely an important survey that I think that we would be silly not to spend some time taking a look at and making sure that student voice across the state is embedded in any changes that we make for next year. And so that was actually for grades 5 through 12. And so the younger students, of course, there were some folks who answered for younger students. You could see them in there as well, but mostly gauged at your upper elementary, middle school, and high school level students. So that was some of that. And we spent some time going through that as a group, and also spent some time talking about the professional development needs of teachers and how we make that shift. As a result of some of our conversations, our area RESC, which is Ed Advance, we work together to put some ideas on the table for the types of regional professional development that will be needed, that not just Danbury teachers, but the teachers in the surrounding districts can participate in as well to help us continue to make the shift. So on the curricular side of things, I'll try to be brief. We're going to be looking at our fall units of study, and we're going to be identifying what are the priority standards that really we need to spend additional time on. Those are your foundational, your gateway standards. So what are some standards that are maybe more nuanced or not as foundational in nature, where we can spend a little less time on, so that we can double down in areas where kids may have had some gaps as a result of the spring this year. We'll be looking at that. And the last piece with the curriculum units, also with Ed Advance, they are producing, or in the final stages of producing, 2 to 3 week units of study that focus on social emotional learning in the fall. And for grades K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and they are working on similar for 9, 12. And what these units do, again, they focus on high leverage standards, but they introduce content and topics that get students talking. It's academic in nature, but it gets students talking naturally and organically about their feelings about what has been going on, what has been happening in their lives, how they've responded, how their families are doing. It brings in a lot of art. It brings in some music. It brings in English standards and mathematics standards and science standards. But it gives opportunities, very cleverly gives kids opportunities to have conversation, to kind of build connections again with their classmates and with the teachers. So it's very nicely done. And a lot of the other surrounding districts are very interested in it as well. So as soon as those are ready, we're going to take a much deeper look, because we definitely want to make sure that we're leading in the fall with social emotional learning, and that we're responsive to students and sort of honoring where they've been and where we need to get them to go. So we'll be making some adjustments.
Right. Kelly, talk about what we're thinking about your areas, and also Kelly, you might want to talk about the discussion we had briefly about our thinking on the calendar for next year, as long as you're up there. Kelly?
So one of the areas that I've been focusing on heavily through the reentry plan is to kind of piggyback off what Kara said, is the social emotional piece. I don't think it comes as a surprise to anyone here that the social emotional issues of our students and their families during this time period has been exceedingly, increased and exacerbated across multiple areas. So one of the things that we are looking at is a whole staff training on some of these social emotional issues, and really how to respond to different students and support families during this time. So building on some of the resiliency that we've done, piggybacking off of our school climate and restorative practices work that we've done in previous 2 years to lay the groundwork to kind of further people's understanding of kids that are coming from different backgrounds, and really how to support them through this time. A particular component of the training will be to focus on COVID, and also some of the social justice that we're seeing and the related issues that are impacting kids. So we're trying to infuse that. In the meantime, I'll just segue a little bit back to Mr. Janelli's question. Related to the school counselors, school social workers, psychologists would all be, kind of critical and paramount to this work. During this time, each of them has really been working on supporting students and supporting families. And so, everything from how to access food to how to access, housing to food stamps, all those different resources within the community have been a preponderance of their work during this time. In addition, our school counselors, I know that was a particular question, everything that they were doing before, scheduling, we still have to schedule kids for classes for next year. We still had to determine who graduated and met the credit requirements. We still need to spend college recommendations and transcripts, and all of those types of things continued. But we also really did a lot of outreach with some small groups, some one-on-one counseling sessions with students, and probably a little bit differently than what we typically do with the younger students. We spent a lot of time meeting actually not with students, but with their parents. And so while we always partner with parents, it was different in the fact that we were providing a lot of education and direct teaching to families on how to support issues with children in the home during this time, because we didn't have access to them for the past few months. So those are some of the issues we've been working on, is really just how to support and leverage all staff and equip them with the tools during this time, because we know kids are going to come in. Some are going to return just like they left, and others are going to return and need different levels of support. And our primary focus has been identifying those children that need the support and getting them to them. We've also contemplated, and we're looking into doing some social emotional screeners, which would help us further our work to identify children and families that may need additional levels of support during this time. So that's in its initial stages of kind of investigation. Moving into the calendar, and why that relates is that in order to kind of prepare staff for the social emotional issues, some of just the school safety and how to access nursing and what to do during different things as we transition back in, we're going to have to do a lot of training in the fall before children even walk in the buildings. And so what we are proposing to do is take our 2 professional development days from later in the school year. So one of them is the election day in November. And the second one is the May PD Day, which I believe was May 28th. Don't quote me on the exact day. And to front load them both at the beginning of the school year. So to move them up in front of the 3 days that staff typically return before kids, that would give us 5 days of work with teachers. Should teachers need to potentially move classrooms, receive training, go over protocols, get the curriculum updates that they need, and kind of how, the transition into second grade, it may look a little bit different this year. You may be covering some of the first grade content and so forth. So we would like to propose to all of you that we move those 2 PD days to front load the time that we have with staff to do really critical training for them.
And in order to bring them back, and also to look into procedures and policies for staff for next year regarding leaves and what have you. Kim has been doing some work in there, also going through and making tallies of our faculty and support staff. Kim, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've been doing a couple of different things. One, we've been trying as best we can to anticipate what we think some of these broader guidelines are going to look like. So we've been taking a close look at the composition of our staff, whether we think that we have certain percentages of them that may be in vulnerable risk categories, that we need to really think carefully about what that means for them. And also, my team has focused a lot on the social emotional needs of our staff coming back. One of the things we've talked about is that there will be a certain level of fear, not just for students, but for our employees coming back to work. And we've tried to leverage the product that we bought, our EAP plan, which you'll remember we've been talking about for quite a long time. It's starting to see some real traction now. So we're going to work with our partners at Cigna to make sure that we've got sufficient resources for our teams as they come back to work, so that they have an outlet not only to deal with some of their own personal social emotional issues, but also to give them some other tools to deal with the students that are on their student support teams. We're also rolling out a module that we've used all spring now of professional development that is online. It's through a product called Master Teacher, and it has gotten just rave reviews. We're just finishing up a SurveyMonkey now to see how it was received by our folks, but there were components of it that were not just how to work with kids on literacy, but also how to deal with de-escalating situations, to work on emotional issues with kids with support of the teachers, and obviously the direction of the teachers. So we've been able to actually spend some time, there's a silver lining always. We've had some time to work with our non-certified staff and to work with these other providers like Cigna to leverage what we have to bring kind of a holistic approach to how we're training our employees as well. And we've just seen good feedback. So hopefully we'll have some results to bring to you back when that comes. And I think, until we can get some definitive broad stroke guidelines about what the fall looks like, we're trying to get our summer teams in and staffed, and to try to anticipate as best we can so that we can be nimble enough to pivot as these decisions start to become reality.
Nimble and pivot. Two good terms, right? Courtney, some of the things that you're working with the PPE and other things that with Jalbert,
Yeah,
want to
thank
update
you.
us?
Check this out. So I would just piggyback off what Kim said about being nimble and being able to pivot. So that's sort of one of at the forefront of everything we're doing with the budget and what we're doing operations with the facility and the security officers. As Kevin mentioned, under his leadership, we're coming together as groups, and we're not waiting for the guidance. We're anticipating the guidance and how that'll fit Danbury, because we're unique and we want to be able to have everything that we can possibly think about planned out ahead of time, so that when the scenario comes, we're ready for it. So from having a budget that, has I think you'll see when we go into the committee, when we go into the workshop, as the finance committee saw the other day, that we've built a budget that's as prudent as we can with a bit of ability to move around depending on what the state guidance is. That's, you know, using our resources as effectively as we can, thinking through every scenario with all the experts at the table. So we've met, as Kevin mentioned, with the bus teams. You know, they're contractors, but they're our experts. So we've talked through every scenario from like a kid's waiting on the corner, they get on the bus, you know, and they arrive at school, every possible scenario we can think through. And we're also costing those things out to see what's realistic and what's not. So working with, you know, Barry Sodexo with the food services company to think through all the scenarios with the lunch and getting their feedback. And Rich Jalbert's been, you know, even Dr. Sal mentioned the other day, he's gone into the classrooms and moved around the desks to figure out how many kids could safely fit based on what we assume the guidance to be now. You know, we've talked through with the security officers what it would look like. I apologize, you know, for somebody entering the building and what safety measures and protocols we need to put in place based on what we know now, not waiting for the guidance, just so we're doing that as nimbly as we can. You know,
We're losing you,
for
Courtney.
Safety advocates, food. We're like Kevin said, we're even talking to people in the specials about what they would need to do with instruments and if that's even going to be a possibility. So I hope people will see that when we walk through all the budget detail with the larger group. And I welcome any questions also. So thank you.
The only thing I will add, the CIC, the Athletic Association, made some decisions about next fall. It sounds like they'll have seasons, but it may be very limited spectators. As that develops, we'll know more. But that's the co-curricular activity is the one that we're monitoring as well.
Well, and Dr. Sal, one last piece on that. We also have a list of all the things we might need to purchase. So we've got a priority list that's ready to go because I know we'll have to be queued up. You know, there'll be other districts buying whatever the supplies that are needed. So every, you know, Kathy O'Dowd from Kelly's group is thinking through what we might need medically. We've purchased some of that already. So no touch thermometers, for example, the sanitizing supplies, we've purchased as much as we can now, you know, and we've got a list of things that should we need to do them, you know, we're ready to go because we've sourced the best possible materials. So that's another thing we're doing.
That's all we have at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. That's okay.
Okay. No questions?
Yeah. Kim, you're probably the best person to answer this question. You know, we're referencing, you know, bringing the teaching staff and the regular staff back in, and I'm wondering sort of what's going to be the operating policy around teachers or staff who may be high risk and maybe are not going to be comfortable coming back into the buildings.
Right. So what I'm hoping is that we're going to get some additional guidance. You might be aware that there have been some changes to the FMLA rules in light specifically of the COVID crisis. One obvious example is people who have difficulty with childcare issues because of the crisis and the shutdown have certain FMLA protections now that would not otherwise have existed. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get some guidance about those high risk groups and what that means for them at the time that we come back. My guess is that it may look something like the kind of inquiry we do with disabilities. What kind of reasonable accommodations can we provide to people who are in high risk groups? But I think it's really, it's kind of a jump ball right now, and everybody's kind of waiting to see if we can get any, at least broad stroke guidelines. I'm encouraged that at least if we're just talking about an age group cutoff, I think we're in pretty good shape with that. But I think, you know, we won't know if there's other, for example, if someone has a serious health condition that makes them vulnerable, we can't ask that question. So we're to work the law contemplates a dialogue with those people about what their concerns are, what their medical conditions are, and how can we accommodate. So it's going to end up being fairly case by case. But I think that the hybrid model is one that's going to roll out in so many different scenarios. I would imagine it's also going to impact staffing as well.
Thanks. And Kelly, I just quick question for you, because it pertains to students. It's sort of a similar question in that certainly we have students in our district who, you know, have underlying health conditions where return to school is not going to be possible for them. And I'm just wondering if you have a sense of how that might impact our budget around special education, because I assume it would fall under that.
Sure.
purview.
So we have a typical protocol anytime that students need what's called homebound instruction. So basically have medical needs that preclude them from coming to school due to safety.
Mhm.
I do anticipate that that number might go up slightly. However, typically in the past, we've done a one-on-one tutor that goes to the home to provide instruction, or we contract with a hospital. Let's say if a child is in a hospital facility receiving some type of treatment. Under this model, if we're not wanting to send a kid to school, for example, I've worked with a couple families already, and they have agreed to do the virtual learning, and we can actually do several students in a group. So I actually think we may be able to do it in a little bit of an adjusted fashion, giving them some time to work with other children that are around their same ability level and receiving the same type of services, as much as possible, so they can get some social interaction with peers, because that's everything I'm hearing from parents is they're scared to send them to school for obvious underlying medical reasons, but they want them to still have connections with peers and with teachers. So we're trying to treat it in that fashion. So I'm not too concerned from a budgetary standpoint. I think we can be creative in the way that we provide those adjustments and services. But certainly we're going to get them.
Thank you.
Gladys?
Any other? Yes.
This is for Kara. Kara, this isn't so much a question as a comment. The distance learning went really well. My kids actually did really good at it. My daughter really thrived at it, probably because she's got a great teacher. The one thing that both of my kids wanted, and I'm just passing this on as a dad anecdote, was the more interaction, more of the Google Meets, more of that. They loved it. My son's only 8, so there were days where he just wasn't interested, and whenever he had one of those, it really fired him up. And my daughter loved being able to talk to her friends and all that. So I think that was really important. I know we can't do synchronous learning. I know that doesn't work. It would be great if we could figure out a way to make it work, but more of that would certainly be good.
We're definitely working on that. So that is something that's come across from all angles. That was a key piece. And so we've had some very nice conversations with the union, with teachers, with coaches, with staff, with principals, and everyone agrees that the interaction is so key. And especially, we're going to head into another long stretch here in the fall if we're going to be doing this again. And how do we rebuild those communities, those classroom communities, and make try to replicate. And the kids are craving not just the student to teacher interaction, but the student to student. And they're technologically, there are ways to do that, and we have to come around how to do that safely and get everybody to feel comfortable with doing that legally. So we're working on it. You could probably expect to see it. Some more guidelines around that for the fall. I call it distance learning 2.0. Kelly and I have been talking about it constantly about what we want to see happen for the fall, but still recognizing that this is unusual. This is not typical distance learning. That this is distance learning under duress, if you will. So
that friend component is so important.
It is. And so
my daughter gets it because her dance class is by Zoom, so she gets more of it. My son, you can't do baseball by Zoom, so
I know.
that means so much.
I appreciate the feedback very much.
The other thing, too, is, sometimes we forget that our new teachers also need to get, have the PD and the interaction with their new colleagues. They're brand new to our district. So we actually have really had our heads together trying to figure out what does new teacher orientation look like, and how do we put them into virtual classrooms so that they can meet their peers and meet their team members, and get them up to speed on some skills that they may not be ready for yet, that are all new to them because they're coming right out of school. So,
mention your idea about the letter we're sending out. I think that's helpful.
What we've done is, again, in the Nimble and Pivot, we ordinarily would send a welcome to the district letter, and this letter is going to link to a Google Classroom that we've set up for them. It's going to hot link to all of our resources, and it's going to ask them to download or purchase on their own some of the materials that we have used in the past, so that they can be prepared for virtual discussion groups in the first few days of new teacher orientation. So it's going to be a very robust set of materials, kind of like when your high schooler complains about the summer work they have to do in anticipation of the fall. It's going to look very much like that. And our new teachers are really going to be held to task with some reading materials and some study materials, so that when they come in, they can be ready to engage with them. it's going to be a whole new thing for us. It's just going to be a whole new world for them.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes,
Amy.
yes.
So I love the nimble and pivot. I mean, Dr. Sal started off by saying, well, we kind of stopped planning until we really know. And then you all go into these very extensive plans that at least you're all thinking and working really hard on it. We so appreciate it. But the 5 days PD, I mean, it sounds like great, but that's like a whole week of coming into school. How are the teachers? What's the sense about the teachers? Are they, would they look?
We talked with them today, and because we do the calendar consultation with them, they've recognized a tremendous need for this.
Good.
We have been working for 2 or 3 years about, I call it a blended PD, where we don't have to be at work necessarily to do it, but if we could create these modules, they can do them on another time. So the physical presence isn't as important as the time and the skills that we're asking them to go after. So they were very, very supportive of it.
Okay, good. Thanks.
They see the real need.
Yeah, I mean, I would think they would. I just
Oh yeah, no question. Yeah, but thank
Any
you
of
for the
them that
question.
they want to know when they can come in and set up their classrooms and, what is it going to look like? Their planners, they want the time, particularly talking about elementary staff.
And even things like, can I get a whiteboard for my living room so that if I have to do this virtually, I can have a whiteboard? I mean, they're all lifelong learners, our teachers, and so they're as interested in acquiring all these new tools as everybody else. What I think has been most impressive, and I live in a different district that has looked very different in terms of distance learning than ours. This Danbury core of teachers they've been enthusiastic learners to each other. They've each been either running a PD session to share their tips or something like that. So I think you all should be very proud of their willingness to engage in this lifelong learning that they've all committed to as a career anyway. Because it's been very successful for them.
So for the board, as I said to you in the beginning, it's not that we have stopped planning. It's the planning for 2 days a week versus 5 days a week. But the things that we're talking about tonight will be applicable to all. And those are the essence of our planning. So we drill down. If they say X and Y, then we'll start counting classrooms and, put that in. But all these other things have to have discussion prior to even knowing that. So I appreciate all the hard work that's going on. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Dr. Sal. I don't think any board member that's listening that have been on Zoom since we have started these meetings can say that you're not working hard. We hear these reports every time that we have a meeting. So we can't say that. We just want to thank you for the hard work that you're doing and the hard work that we know that's going to come ahead. So just keep us informed and just keep everybody safe so we can keep doing what we need to do for the district.
Thank you.
The next on the agenda, unless no one else wants to get it, chairperson report. I have a very short report. Everybody know I'm quick on words, but I like to say what I believe and feel what's right. I want to thank Catherine Hutchison for working along with me to make sure that we had some representation out to for our 2020 graduates from Danbury High School on last Friday morning. Amy, Al, especially Dr. Sal, Rachel, and myself, and thank Carol for making sure that we had the banner and everything was in place. And it was a beautiful affair, and I really enjoyed it. And I just want to thank you all for being there to support our class of 2020 from Danbury High School. Thank you again. And that ends my report.
I have something if we're on board chair report.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I just got an email saying that on June 15th at 6 p.m. there's a 2020 task force meeting. So again, that's June 15th at 6 p.m. And also Sandy Sanchez from Westside gives me, and she does our recording minutes, she gives me a monthly update about what's happening at Westside. And there were several virtual ceremonies. There was a 6th grade orientation on May 21st that went really well. My son was a part of that, helping to give the orientation while my daughter was there as a incoming sixth grader. So it was pretty special and very well done. There was an award ceremony on June 4th. And there will be a moving up ceremony on June 10th. And all of these are, I believe, on YouTube. If you search for Frank Blanca,
Did you find it?
some of them, and they're very well done. So I just want to
She's gonna look it up.
acknowledge those.
Thank you, Rachel.
Can I just want to mention two things, if I can. There was something last week I couldn't go, but Lauren, can you mention it for Dr. Cronin? I just thought it'd be appropriate. I know Kevin was able to get there.
Yes.
Wasn't it? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So Dr. Cronin is retiring, and so we had a little a parade for her. We surprised her, and it was tough to get her there, but we finally got her there, and we drove her around Mill Ridge Primary and Westside Middle School. We drove her back and forth between the two schools, and we had the staff and like retired teachers or whatever park at her school. Her family parked in between the two schools at the soccer field, and then parents and families from past and present parked down at Westside. There was a great attendance. Everybody decorated their cars, and she cried the entire time and was so thankful. So we're just happy we were able to do that for her. And it was an amazing day. And I'm thankful to Colleen, Gelati, John Sawmill, John Piak for helping us put it together, and my husband for driving the hay wagon.
Hay wagon. And just so we know, the next 3 days we have high school graduation, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Hopefully it won't be raining on Thursday.
Right.
So that is it. Thank you for the permitting me to do that.
Seeing none, the next item is we need a motion to enter into executive session.
I'll make a motion.
I make
Motion is made by Rachel, seconded by
I'll second.
Kate.
Sorry, Rachel.
All in favor, say aye. If you need a break, let's do it now. Right into executive session. Motion so carried.
So
Okay?
we're staying on this site, right?
No, I think we're leaving.
No, we gotta go to another site.
We have a new link.
Oh, we have a new link? Is
So
it
can
the-
I just clarify something though? Do we have to come back into this session afterwards to do the adjournment?
I don't think we can get back into this session once we leave it, so we'll have to do the adjournment from the next.
Adjournment and for the other section.
Okay.
Yeah.
The technological glitches.
All right.